funk, soul, and rock and roll. And then I went off and became background singer for Stevie Wonder. That was a hot mess. Very different from the Michael show, because Michael's show was very everything like locked in, but Stevie would just start singing and we don't know what the set list is. That was life-changing for me to be.
Because Billy, like, he's famous for playing with the Beatles.
Yeah, the Fifth Beatle.
Yeah. Well, you need to get something done, just do it. You know?
It was overwhelming, and it was terrifying to experience someone just die like that. Traumatic on so many levels.
I think was it a year after that you meet Prince?
He wanted to help me fight that whole battle with
Right.
Sony. It was a nightmare. We got out of it and ended up releasing the album with Prince. Well, when Prince had passed, it kind of definitely threw me into trauma and shock.
Like, you do put some of your life force into the guitar, your energy.
Yeah. I realized that the stage was my home, and I always loved it.
Judith Hill, thank you so much for doing our podcast today. I'm very excited. And we had dinner last night, which was a lot of fun, meeting your family. And you just come from Budapest, was it?
Yes.
The last show?
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
It was amazing. It was beautiful. Beautiful at the MUPA place, and it was just a really, really beautiful night.
And you got to Prague when? What day did you get to Prague?
We actually got here day before yesterday, so we had a chance to just kind of breathe a little bit in Prague, which was just so lovely. This is such a beautiful city.
And it's your first time properly here, isn't it, doing a show, I think, is it?
Actually, I played here 2 years ago.
Oh, wow, amazing.
Yeah, so this is our second go-round.
Same band?
Yeah, well, we didn't have John. It was a different drummer, but pretty much the same. Everyone else was the same. And then I went off and...
Because it's pretty unique, your mum and your dad being
yeah.
in the band.
Very
and they're
different from
amazing musicians.
Yeah, they're special.
I was like, you know, it was funny last night we were having dinner, and you know, it's a bit strange in the sense, in a good way, that, you know, you looked like and felt like a band, not like mum and dad and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you find sometimes with, you know, with parents, when they've got like a child, you know, in the band, they're kind of overbearing, overprotective, and there's just none of that.
Yeah,
you just would never know.
Yeah, no, it's really just awesome energy. And
So did you, I mean, obviously you grew up around music all the time, because they were involved like from the very early days. They built a studio in the house, isn't that's the story? Yeah. Yeah.
So I was a lucky kid. I got to kind of soak up so much as just a young child by just my parents' friends coming over and recording things, and singers recording in my bedroom and things like that. So it was just like I had this opportunity to really soak up the sound.
Amazing. So was that their business? Like, I mean, because this was probably in what, the 80s and the 90s?
Yeah, well, yeah, interestingly enough, like that was during a time, especially it was in the 90s, when not everyone had like the Pro Tools set up and like the house recording. So my dad had like this huge Neve console with the tape. And so they did actually rent it out a lot, and people did come to record there because not everyone had like the huge Neve console and all of the crazy equipment. So yeah, back in the 90s, I would say that was a big part of their business. Besides being musicians, they also did have like the recording studio. And then when Pro Tools came, I think it all changed, and they kind of got rid of a lot of that equipment.
They should have kept it.
I know,
now.
it's worth, I know.
So, like a Neve console, Neve consoles are very, very expensive.
Yeah,
so obviously,
huge.
Yeah, huge and expensive. So what did your dad do that kind of led him into having the studio in the house? Was he a working musician who turned into a producer, or was he always an engineer producer? And how did all that evolve?
Yeah, well, they were all just mainly musicians, but then they also had a lot of musicians that also had projects, and people was finding a place to record the band, or bigger, you know, choir projects, or just anything really. And so it just became a thing where they were like, let's create a studio. And then there was a lot of people that ended up using it or needing it. And so sometimes he would engineer, or sometimes you just rent it out and just be like, okay, you guys got it, you know.
No, because I used to have a studio in my kitchen, you know, so I started out in that kind of road as well, but probably no Neve desk, unfortunately. But you kind of just, you know, well, you need to get something done, just do it, you know. If you want to do something, do it. So you build your own studio.
Yeah.
And that was that was in the late 80s, 90s for me, and it was a lot of fun, like, you know, an Atari and some ADATs, and you made records, you know. There was an amazing time, and it was that turnaround, wasn't it, where sort of people were just building studios.
Yeah.
And you had people like Billy Preston coming through.
Yeah. Billy Preston. My dad used to be in Billy's band, and then later on, Billy would come over and, you know, record some organ stuff for different projects. And it was great just having people like Billy or the Family Stone, Rose and Freddie would come over and record some stuff. And so, yeah.
Because Billy, like, he's famous for playing with the Beatles.
Yeah, the Fifth Beatle.
Yeah, and George Harrison afterwards. And he was an amazing player. And had a bit of a tragic life. And, but incredible player. The Beatles loved him. So he's very well known in the UK, for instance. Yeah. Any Beatle fan will know who Billy Preston is. But so he was doing his own solo stuff, or was he working with your mum and dad on stuff, or? Yeah,
there was I think there was a lot of gospel projects that he would record on. I can't remember the exact projects that he was recording on, but I know that there was a lot of like gospel things that would come to the house. I think Billy would play on some of that stuff. I don't know if it was like Andre Crouch or some of the other projects like that.
So you're like a little kid soaking all this up in the house. So you're sitting around just, I mean, obviously it just became the norm. Like having this crazy house with musicians coming through. It reminds me of, I remember when I had my studio at home, my girlfriend at the time came in and like, you know, the living room was just, you know, a load of guys watching daytime television. Just like, this isn't really working for me.
Right.
But for you, obviously, it was probably fun having all these amazing people around. Do you remember it well, or do you have fond memories of it? Or?
I think I was like, and when I was really young, I was sort of just like all over the place running around and didn't really understand the value of it. And I was just sort of like, sometimes my parents would have me record, and sometimes I was like, oh, I don't want to. I want to go play outside with my friends. And so it wasn't until later on where I was like, oh, this is really what I want to do for myself. And so as a young kid, I think I was just being like just a little naughty kid running around and didn't realize all of the level of talent around me. I was just, you know, running around.
So were they like sort of encouraging you to play piano and play guitar?
Yeah, my mom was a piano teacher for a lot of us kids.
Right.
And she developed like this, almost like a jam band for kids. And so all of my friends were musician friends, like the Abe Laboriel Jr. and like Akil Thompson. They were all like kids from like great musicians. And so we would all play together. My mom kind of facilitated that. And so at first it was kind of like me being the daughter. I was probably the worst student. And then I learned to like, I was really grateful for my mom's like teachings. After a while, I learned to appreciate it.
And when did the guitar come in? Because obviously you're a wicked guitar player.
You know, that actually came later in my life. I was always playing the piano because that was just what my mom taught me, and that was more of like I would play and sing. The guitar didn't come until I would say like 2016 or something, when I was going through lots of trauma, and there was like this expression that was so angsty in me, and I couldn't get it out of the piano. It was just too smooth, and I just felt all this rage and this sorrow. And then I picked up the guitar, and I just was like, it was the closest thing to my human voice. And so it was just like, I was able to really, it was like therapy. And so ever since then, it's just become like my Black Panther, my therapy animal, my spirit animal.
I get that completely. I mean, okay, you can get all Jerry Lee Lewis on the piano, but only for so long, and but it's not the physicality of a guitar and the way you embrace it. I think it's different as you hold it, you know, so you can kind of, I get that. I think that's, like even talking to Joe Bonamassa about guitars and the fact that like you do put some of your life force into the guitar, your energy. Yeah. So I get the whole idea of kind of bringing out your emotions, your kind of rage.
Yeah, and as the type of singer I am, like I'm a very full-voiced singer, and so it was like the two of us were competing. Like I get to sing, and the guitar answers me, and it was just like this battle of emotion. So it was fun.
And you were self-taught? Did you get lessons, or?
I'm pretty much self-taught. I mean, some of my friends, I'd come and be like, hey, show me this or that. But, you know, just my own personal journey with it, you know.
And live, mainly, you play guitar. I've only seen a certain amount of videos, but I haven't seen any with you at the piano. I know you do play piano and sing, but so mainly live in the live show, you...
I do play and sing at the piano as well. I still do that. It's still kind of home base for me. But a lot of our show is funk, soul, and rock and roll, and so it does have more of like I do use the guitar a little bit more for the shows.
So the music you're listening to, as you were saying earlier on, is gospel, sort of the Clark sisters,
Yes.
Ella Fitzgerald,
Yes.
Louis Armstrong. So a lot of classic soul, Aretha Franklin, obviously. And on the modern side, who are you listening to when you were a young kid? So what's the...
When I was a young kid or now?
Well, maybe let's go back to when you were a young kid.
When I was a young kid, on the modern side, I was all about Missy Elliott and Brandy. Her voice was just always just like textbook. Like, it was definitely Lauryn Hill, and it was
the Fugees as well. And
yeah, the Fugees, Lauryn Hill. It was definitely let's see who else I like. I mean, I would say like vocally, I would listen to Whitney Houston a lot. The modern side. I mean,
pop wise.
I mean, I liked No Doubt. I liked Gwen. I liked on the pop side. Let's see. Well, I mean, it was like Aaliyah, funk, soul, and rock and roll. And then I went off and became background singer for Stevie Wonder. That was
because in your sound, I hear a lot of P-funk as well.
Oh, of course, the classics like George and Sly.
Even
all
Morris Day in the Time.
Yeah,
I was listening to the Time like about a week ago, and then I was listening to your stuff, and I was like, there's a bit of that kind of the way the drums and the bass work together, especially the keyboards, those keyboard lines. Some of it reminded me of Morris Day, you know, sort of who's in the Time and the whole Prince thing.
Oh yeah, well that was like home base, like funk. I'm trying to go with modern, like wasn't R&B side, but I mean, the home base was definitely funk, especially with the Family Stone being so close to, and like sort of my mentorship with Rose, and so the Family Stone, and of course P, and of course Parliament, Brother Johnson's, like, you know, like all of that was definitely just breathing through the household. That was just sort of like water. That was everything that existed around me, and I loved.
So you said Rose, like being a mentor. So how did that manifest itself?
Yeah, so Rose was she was the choir director for the church that we went to, and so every Monday, her and my mom would get together and put together all of the repertoire, and so I would just tag along every week to choir rehearsal Monday nights and to her house so I would see her like twice a week, and I would just soak it up because she was just so awesome. And she conducted the choir rehearsals like, it just felt like school. Like she took a lot of that, like Sly and the Family Stone energy, and that's kind of how she ran the songs and the arrangements. And so I was just like a kid in a candy shop because there was also incredible singers in that group, like Tata Vega, and a lot of singers would just come through that choir. And so Rose was always kind of like allowing me to sit in and sometimes sing in the choir and just kind of teach me a lot.
So there was never, like a lot of people have a seminal moment or a lightning bolt moment when they hear a song, that's what I want to do. But the fact that it was your just everyday existence, was it always what you were going to do from day one? It was just a natural path, or had you other ambitions and other things besides music?
It was always there. I didn't really think of anything else. I was pretty much immersed in it. I think the one maybe aha moment was when I heard Lauryn Hill's His Eyes on the Sparrow, and I was like in tears listening to it, and that was probably one of the moments where I was like, that's all I want to do is create that feeling in the world, like the way she made me feel. I want to make that people feel that way. I think as a young kid I remember that moment, but there was a lot of moments like that, just listening to singers and kind of growing up around it, where I was like, oh my God, so inspired by this moment, you know?
I'm thinking, I could do that.
But yeah, first it was very, very intimidating. I didn't feel like I could because I was like surrounded by greatness, and you're like, as a kid, you're not there yet, and you're like, oh, I'm still in my training wheels. But there was always that desire and that passion to be able to do that.
So you're gigging around LA, I suppose. I mean, you're from LA, and but then you get this gig in France with Michael.
Yeah, Michel Polnareff.
Yeah, so he's quite an eccentric character from what I know.
Yeah. So
how did that come about, and how's the experience in France? Because that's a whole different culture change.
Yeah, definitely. So that was like after I had graduated from college. I graduated with music degree, and then one of my parents' friends, a singer in LA community, was like, you know, there's an audition, and we think Judith should audition. Like, And so they're like, oh yeah, you should go on this audition. It was for Michelle for this big French tour. And I was really green. I'd never done any touring. It was my first rodeo, really. And so I ended up getting that gig. And was touring with him for a little over a year in France, and spent a majority of my time in France. And that was a really awesome experience, my first arena tour. Because as a kid, I was always, you know, singing in church and little places, but that was like an arena tour, so it was really...
And the French are, you know, it's a wildly different culture, isn't it? So was that a bit of a culture shock? Or?
Oh yeah, totally a culture shock. Yeah.
In what way? What was the first thing that really threw you when you got there, what they did?
I think, I don't know. I think it was just once we first got to Paris. I think I was just sort of like not knowing the language and really like feeling like you're in another country, and so just being humbled. Like, okay, how do I learn the language and try to get by? I think that was like the first big culture shock.
And it's a gorgeous city.
It is, yeah.
So going there, I mean, the galleries and if you're into art and all the rest of it. So it's like it's when Americans sometimes come to Europe and they see that kind of history and beauty. It is.
I would just get lost up in Paris, go to the museums, and just it was so magical to be able to just get lost in the city.
So you did the tour for a year with him, and then you came back. It just came back as the tour finished, and was...
Yeah, tour finished and came back to LA.
And then the next thing is you get offered the gig with Michael. Is that right? Is that the timeline?
Yeah. So I got off the gig with Michelle, and I spent a year just kind of like doing some songwriting and things like that, and then got more plugged in with the jazz community in LA. So I was doing a lot of like gigging at these jazz clubs, like some very high level, you know, fusion jazz bands, and I would sit in and be a part of them. And I met a lot of cool musicians doing that. And on one particular gig, I was meeting some new friends, making new friends, and they were like, you know, I know the MD for Michael Jackson, and they're auditioning for him right now. You should do it. I was like, okay, that's like a long stretch. Sounds like one in like 30,000 people auditioning around the corner, like, you know, and so it ended up being a very close-knit, almost referral situation.
Sure.
And so that was the next thing that I did.
Well, that must have been huge for you in your head.
Yeah, that was mind-blowing, for sure.
So, and obviously, so you get the gig, and then it's all about to happen, and then it doesn't. I mean, that must have been a blow as well. Like when you kind of have a gig that big, and then Michael passes.
Yeah, no, that was incredible.
On so many levels, because you know him, but also
yeah.
the loss for you is like, this is a huge break. You know, the biggest artist in the world.
Yeah, no, it was definitely traumatic on so many levels, and I was really too young to really comprehend all the complexities of that situation. So it was overwhelming, and it was terrifying to experience someone just die like that abruptly. You know?
Yeah, and sort of what happened after that. So you went through the process of that, and then it's like, I think was it a year after that you meet Prince?
No, actually, let's see.
2 years.
So that was
maybe?
2000. That was 2008. Was Michael. Something like that, 2007, 2008. And after that, I got with Dave Stewart, and we just did a lot of songwriting and recording, and then...
and who put that together? Dave Stewart? How did that happen?
Yeah, so I met him through Glenn Ballard. I think I was doing some session in LA, and he was there, and he ended up recording my first body of work. We didn't release it, but it was really cool. And he was just like he was like a Willy Wonka, like this incredibly magical, creative person that had all these cool ideas. And so I spent about a year working on projects with him. And then I went off and became background singer for Stevie Wonder.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and was with Stevie for about a year.
How was that? That
was incredible. That was just like, I mean, I just love his music more than anything. It's just like, so be able to sing that music, and it was like, very different from the Michael show, because Michael's show was very like rehearsed, and Kenny Ortega had everything like locked in. But Stevie would just start singing, and we don't know what the set list is, so you just had to like know all the songs, and that was terrifying, but it was a good stretch for me.
And sort of then there was so you do the 20 Feet from Stardom film.
Yeah.
And I think that from my notes was 2013, was it?
Yeah, I started doing interviews for Morgan and that whole project, and then went on The Voice after that. And when I was on The Voice, then 20 Feet from Stardom had released, and it started doing really well.
Because it was a good concept. I mean, interesting concept, and all its, you know, trials and tribulations of like when you're striving to do things and you're the side guy, but you really want to do things on your own. So when you were kind of doing the film, did it bring up a lot of ghosts or a lot of issues in your head where I really need to stop doing the session work and really strive to be my own kind of artist? Was there that internal dialogue?
You know, it's funny. I feel like that was the narrative that was pushed. And I feel like, and then I went off and became a background singer for Stevie Wonder. I was like, yeah, that's true. I do want to do my own music. But that I don't feel like any of my chapters as a background singer ever hindered me. That was just added and made it even more inspiring for me to do. Like, it just contributed more to my creativity. And so I think I just look back, I just celebrate all of it. But I do feel like the narrative was like, these women are in the shadows, they want to be in the forward. And it's like, I think we all just really enjoyed and felt blessed that we were able to sing on so many different stages, and we get to do our own. Like, it's not either or. I think that it's interesting. If I were to speak on it today, I would have a lot to say about that whole documentary. But I also think it was beautiful that it also shared the stories of people that needed to know their stories and everything. But I think it's about the celebration of all of it, you know, rather than, oh, the shadows and, you know, I think it's all important work. It's beautiful work.
Yeah, and it's, as you said, it's all work. It's a job, you know, we do a job. And it's like, so it's just part of your journey, isn't it? Sometimes you do some session work, sometimes it's your stuff, sometimes you're playing that.
Yeah,
you know, I understand that myself. It's my, you know, my own personal journey is very like that, you know, producer, but I've been a performer and, you know, jumping in and out of engineer. I've done lots of different jobs, and it's all mixes it up, and it's interesting. It's all experience as well.
It's all experience.
And the people you're working with are the best of the best.
It's inspiring. Every interaction is a magical experience, and like, you learn so much from it, you know?
So you end up with a deal, I'm thinking, which ends up Prince producing. So who are you signed to when the Prince album came along?
That was a hot mess. That was a big dramatic nightmare.
There's always one.
But he was a crusader for artists, and so he wanted to help me fight that whole battle. So it ended up being a lawsuit with Sony. It was a nightmare. But we got out of it and ended up releasing the album with Prince, and that was life-changing for me. To be able to work with him, I think it was a chapter in my life that was a real turning point of, I think the most powerful thing that Prince gave was just power and teaching me that you got to be your own boss and really take your creative vision and make sure it happens, you know. And so it was hard. It was a hard lesson learned, but I think to this day I still understand that, and I never leave that.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you meet him? How did that come about?
Yeah. So I was doing a very random interview. I think it was in the UK, and they were like, "So who would be your dream collaborator?" And I said, "Oh, it'd be awesome to work with Prince." Like, just never ever thinking anything like that would happen, but he ended up hearing that interview and reached out to management and was like, I heard that Judith wants to work with me, and just, can I call her? And he ended up just calling me and was like, I heard you want to work with me.
That must have been surreal, getting that phone call. Come on.
It was like, what on earth? What planet?
Judith.
Yeah, it was crazy for him to even like found that interview and to like reach out. It was crazy.
And how was the process making the record? Because he's one of the greats.
It was amazing because it was just like being at home. It reminded me of like the 7-year-old kid version of the music, because at that point I was pretty exhausted working with so many A&Rs and, let's find the hit, and I was throwing with different producers, writing. But with Prince, it was like, let's go in with a band. Let's just record the arrangements like we would a live record. And it was like very old school. The tape, we recorded it to tape. And it brought me back to my center, my roots. Like, this is what I remember this. Like, it kind of brought me back to like this is what you were taught when you were a kid. Like, and so ever since then, I never turned back. It was like the joy of making music that way again and celebrating live music and the musicians and parts and the live world and understanding if I want to be a touring artist, like what kind of music, what kind of arrangements. And that was just like how we made the record. And it was like a reset button.
So he did mainly the arrangements, you did mainly the writing. You wrote some together, but I think you did the majority of the writing.
Yeah, so I had a lot of the songs already written. And so he just kind of came in and we did live versions of them. Essentially, it was live versions with his sort of arrangements. Yeah, he was like, try this drum groove instead. Like, he arranged the band, and then we wrote some songs together as well.
And who was in the band?
So it was Andrew Goucher was on bass. John Blackwell was on drums. Prince played a lot of the music as well, guitars and bass and drums as well. Kurt Johnson played some drums. We had the horn section, the MPG horns, and Xavier on keyboards. Yeah.
So it was a wicked band, amazing band.
It was awesome.
So the record comes out, well, you put the record out through Live Nation, isn't that right? You kind of sent an email out to all of their list, and basically this is was that kind of a gut reaction? You're just putting the record out, you're kind of kicking back at the label and just saying, this record's going out regardless. And was Prince part of that decision process?
Yeah, it was his idea, and he was sort of like, he had a very a relationship with Live Nation, and he was kind of like, we're not doing the concerts unless you put out this record. They were like, oh wow, okay, we gotta do this, and that was the first time they've ever done that. So they were a little nervous, like, but we don't do this. We don't we're not a label. He's like, well, you're putting out and so he was always exploring new ways of breaking the system. He was always about he was a revolutionist, trying to figure out ways that we can kind of overcome sort of the oppression of the system.
Was that when he had the kind of slave written on his face? Was that around that time?
No, it was definitely after.
Really?
But he's definitely always fighting the system and trying to figure out how we can be free from it. So
you did it at Paisley Park as well, which must have been so much fun.
Yeah, definitely.
How long did it take? It was a quick album, wasn't it?
It was a quick album because it was essentially live recordings, and we just kind of overdubbed a few things, but yeah, live recordings.
Did he mix it as well?
No, we had a mixer that kind of just leveled things. That was a big discussion because he was like, "It's already mixed," and I was like, "It is?" He's like, "Yeah, it's already mixed." He's like, "Well, you can hire a mixer if you want, but this is the album. This is the version I'm listening to." And then I was like, "Okay, so I guess we don't need to mix it." So he kind of was like, "You go in there with the mixer and mix it," and kind of sent me through this difficult test. It was. But I think the point he was trying to make is if something is recorded really well, there's very little mixing that needs to be done.
Yeah, you're kind of mixing as you go along.
Yeah, it was recorded. He had a setup where everything was so dialed in, the bass sound, everything. So at any point he can record a song and it's already sounding the way he wanted it to sound. And it was loud and everything. So he didn't really rely too much on mixers and masters and all of that.
So it must have been a massive shock when he passed, because you must have got tight over that period of time as well.
Yeah, it was definitely the hardest chapter of my life, is that whole season.
So obviously he was on a lot of medication at the time. I think it was pain medication, wasn't it, eventually, or something of that nature? Yeah. And it was just awful for everybody, I think, around the world. Just think, he died in a lift in the building. Is that true? I can't remember.
Yeah, it was definitely difficult. Yeah.
So after this, what happened? So you've put out the record and through Live Nation, and everything is kind of moving along. What's the next chapter? What happens after that?
Well, when Prince had passed, it kind of definitely threw me into trauma and shock, and we were right in the middle of the album cycle and just about to go on tour with the album. And so I did the tour, but I didn't cancel the tour. I ended up doing it, but it was the hardest tour of my life because my head was all over, I wasn't well. I was not mentally well. And so I basically really just kind of got through 2016, just got through it. There were things that were supposed to happen with the album. There's like a deal with Rock Nation. I was so lost, I just basically didn't do any of it.
Right.
And so that album basically ended up just sort of doing what it did, and we just did as much touring as I could possibly handle. And then after that, I just kind of went away and tried to figure how to get better mentally. And it was a long process.
When you say get away, what do you mean?
Just like go to therapy and just really kind of take care of myself, because I wasn't in a good place.
Yeah. Well, it was two huge shocks over the years. I mean, being honest about it, you know, Michael Jackson dies, Prince dies, and you were very close to both of them when big things were about to happen. It's the honest truth of it as well. Besides the fact we're friends with them, as you say, on so many levels, it's traumatic. It's like, you know, what have I done kind of thing.
Yeah.
A little. I mean, it's being honest, you know, it's tough. I mean, we've all had those kind of blows in our lives, but they're big blows, huge blows.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely hard. Losing Prince, that was definitely on another level of, you know, but I eventually got myself together enough to release. I started releasing music again and got back on touring. And so 2017 is where I started picking up back on the road and with the family band. And we stayed consistent.
When you...
It was comforting, definitely. And we stayed consistent. It was like, I realized that the stage was my home and I always loved it. And so I just stayed consistent with the tour schedule and releasing. And that was what I felt was my calling, you know? And so it's been good. It's been good.
So on the kind of, we were talking about, you know, musicians who inspire, but what about now, like the young musicians around now, who's floating your boat?
Yeah, there's a lot of, it's funny, every time I answer this question, it's usually the people that I know that inspire me the most, like some of my friends, but I would say like Corey Henry and Mono Neon are really inspiring to me. I think for vocalists, I love like Jasmine Sullivan and dopeYEAH, and let's see, who else? Oh, Daniel Ponder, she's a friend of mine too. Love her voice. There's just so many artists now. But and then I love like Anderson .Paak. I love Kendrick. I love his pen. Yeah, there's a lot of people.
You think there's enough room for everybody? Or it's kind of, there's so many artists out there now. It's like,
yeah, it's too much room. It's rock and roll. And then I went off and became. It's different now because that was a hot mess. Very different from. It's like oversaturated, and so everyone just kind of finds who they love, and it's like all going on at the same time. So you lose that sort of like terrestrial TV, like are all eyes on this one event, and it's just like instead of it's like this streaming, all things happening at one time. So it can be overwhelming releasing music in that sort of chaos of digital space where everything is just. And
playlists.
Where it's just constant.
People are just playing playlists rather than really investing in the band or investing in the artist. They're just listening to constant playlists.
Yeah, totally.
But, I think I heard this statistic the other day that it's 100,000 tracks a day are put up on Spotify.
Yeah,
100,000 a day.
Wild.
Even the majors, I think, are putting 3,000 to 4,000 tracks a day out. It's a lot of music.
It really is.
Whereas back in the day, I'm not going to be an old fart here or anything, but, you know, it's like there was a kind of a filtering process, you know, where, you know, labels would pick up acts, so you couldn't just, you had to go into a studio, or at least you had to build a studio. And I felt that was kind of healthier in a way, but we'll see where it goes. It will always find its own level, I suppose, as time goes on. So of the new artists around, or even any artists around at the moment, who would you love to work with? If there was another collab to happen, who would it be?
I think Kendrick. I think that would be cool.
Post Malone? Nah.
Maybe.
Sorry, Post. You're not getting the call, mate. Anyway.
Yeah, no, why not? I mean, I'm down. I'm open.
We love you, Post.
We do.
And are you writing all the time? Are you writing stuff? Are you kind of a guy who goes out on the road and sort of, do you just constantly write in your head, or do you put time aside to write? I
put time aside to write. I definitely like the album I'm about to release was written when I just kind of locked myself away for several months, and that was a really special record. But yeah, I usually when I come off tour, I spend like a chunk just writing some music and a new project.
And you don't co-write so much?
I do, yeah, I do. I mean, I do a lot of also writing for TV and film. That's off to the side, and there's a lot of co-writes there.
Right.
Constantly doing.
It's a great work. I do that as well.
Yeah.
It's great fun as well. So doing sort of production music and bespoke for film. Have you done anything particular that we'd know?
Yeah, I have several songs on a lot of different TV shows, like All American, Grey's Anatomy. I don't know all of them, but they're all constantly always going through, and then films as well. These are all just placements, or I'll write specifically for something. But yeah, that's always, I'm very grateful for that because it just is a constant like income stream. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. It all helps. All those little bits going into the pie. Judith, thank you so much for doing it. It's been doing our podcast. It's like we're thrilled that you've done it. Can't wait to see the show tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Judith.
Thank you.
Judith Hill. Thank you.